Hello, my dear friends. I'm Dr. Vaishali Bharambe, and we are doing midbrain. Today, we are going to be studying midbrain at the level of inferior colliculus. So, now we are looking at the brainstem from behind. These are the two sections using which we will understand the midbrain. This is at the level of superior colliculus, and this is at the level of inferior colliculus. It is a section at the inferior colliculus, the lower section, which we will be studying first. Okay. As usual, we begin a diagram. Now, what do we know? Always get into neuroanatomy with an idea, what do I know? So, you already know the shape of midbrain section. You already know crus cerebri. You know substantia nigra. Till then, you should be able to draw comfortably, confidently. Okay? So, that's what it is. Substantia nigra, crus cerebri are common to both sections. You should be able to draw that confidently. So, begin your diagram. You know this, you're familiar with it. So, this is one half of midbrain. This is the other half of midbrain. This is the aqueduct of Sylvius. Now, draw these two lines, thicker medially, thinner laterally. This, as you know, is your substantia nigra and this is your crus cerebri. Draw a line, a circle to sort of surround your aqueduct. This is the periaqueductal gray. I'm saying all this because you are supposed to know this, right? Now, modify your diagram. We've done this earlier. Modify your diagram so that the edges of crus cerebri look a little rough to indicate the longitudinal fibers passing through it. Modify the anterior edge of the substantia nigra to give it a more reticulated appearance so that the cells of substantia nigra, pars reticularis and the crus cerebri fibers sort of blend into each other a little bit. So modify that if possible. Draw a horizontal line through the section. The part posteriorly is the tectum. And the rest of it is cerebral peduncle. We've done this. Darken the substantia nigra, labeled it. This part in front of substantia nigra is the crus cerebri and this part is your substantia nigra itself. This part behind substantia nigra is tegmentum and the part around the central aqueduct is the periaqueductal gray. You have known all this. Nothing that I have taught you today till now is new to you. I've just revised it with you to bring you into the game or into the section. Right. So, substantia nigra has been studied. Crus cerebri have been studied. Today, we are going to focus on tegmentum, periaqueductal gray and tectum. Is that clear? The goals of today's lecture? Study the tegmentum, study the periaqueductal gray, study the tectum. Clear? Okay. So, let's do the study at the level of inferior colliculus. Remember that. So, let's begin to understand what is happening in the tegmentum at the level of inferior colliculus. This is what you have drawn. This is crus cerebri substantia nigra. Let's add the lemniscal band to it. Remember the lemniscal band? We've done it in pons. We've lower section as well as the higher section of pons. So add the lemniscal band. 1, 2, 3, 4 longitudinally going tracts. This one, label them. This is medial lemniscus. This is trigeminal lemniscus. This is spinal lemniscus. This is lateral lemniscus. Have you added them? Have you labeled them? Now what do? We always use the same method I have taught you earlier also. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Yes? 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That means the 2 steps forward you have taken is drawing the lemniscal band. What is the 1 step back you're going to take? You're going to go back in your mind and ask yourself, what are all these? Okay? So, the first thing you should note is that the lemniscal band has shifted. Remember in pons, the lemniscal band was quite anteriorly. In midbrain, this lemniscal band, the whole thing has shifted a little more laterally and posteriorly. Okay? Now we'll begin to revise them. Medial lemniscus. So questions you should ask yourself, what is medial lemniscus? Medial lemniscus is a filling It's a bundle of fibers which are ascending upwards, right? Which ascending fibers contribute to formation of medial lemniscus? We know that it's the dorsal column tract from the spinal cord. What modality are they carrying? Ask yourself, is it fine touch? Is it 2-point discrimination? Okay. Is it sense of vibration? Yes. Which side do they represent? Is it of the same side or the opposite side? This is a very interesting question. It is of the opposite side. Why? Because at the level of medulla, thus there was the great sensory decussation when fibers of one side crossed over to the opposite side, forming medial lemniscus of the opposite side. Now let's talk about trigeminal lemniscus. We've again discussed this at the level of medulla as well as at the level of pons. Okay, so pain temperature is carried in the trigeminal lemniscus coming from spinal nucleus or trigeminal nerve. Touch pressure is coming from the principal sensory nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Fibers from here are traveling in the trigeminal lemniscus going up to the thalamus. What is spinal lemniscus then? Spinal lemniscus consists of fibers carrying pain temperature, but from the opposite half of the body. Trigeminal lemniscus is carrying from the opposite half of the face. Okay? Whereas in case of spinal lemniscus, it's carrying from the opposite half of the body. That's the difference. Lateral lemniscus consists of fibers which are carrying hearing from the cochlear nuclei. So from cochlear nuclei, dorsal, intermediate and ventral acoustic striae begin to ascend upwards in the ipsilateral and especially contralateral lateral lemniscus. Okay, so lateral lemniscus today here is carrying sensation of hearing. So let's take a look at this lemniscal band and revise once again. Medial lemniscus, fine touch, opposite side of the body. Trigeminal lemniscus, pain temperature, touch pressure from the opposite half of the face. Spinal lemniscus, pain temperature, opposite half of the body. Lateral lemniscus, hearing from both sides from the cochlear nerves. Finally, hearing has reached up till here. Okay. Now let's add, we will discuss what happens later. Let's add a trochlear nerve and nucleus now to this diagram. So here is the trochlear nucleus. The trochlear nerve emerges from the trochlear nerve nucleus. The fibers can be seen clearly crossing dorsally, winding around the midbrain, coming anteriorly. This is how your trochlear nerve is formed. Trochlear nerve is the only cranial nerve that decussates, crosses completely before coming forward ventrally. It's the only cranial nerve that takes origin dorsally. So let's discuss it in brief. It's one of the 3 important nerves that supplies the muscles of your eyeball. If you've done eyeball, then you will remember LR6, lateral rectus, is supplied by the 6th cranial nerve. SO4, superior oblique, is supplied by the trochlear nerve. All others oculomotor. I hope you know all this. Okay. So, 4th cranial nerve supplies SO4, superior oblique muscle of the eyeball. Okay. This 4th cranial nerve takes origin from the trochlear nerve nucleus present in the periaqueductal gray matter. It's a general somatic efferent nucleus, winds around the central gray matter, decussates with its partner dorsally, winds around the midbrain and comes, you can see it winding around the midbrain here, moving forwards to appear ventrally. Takes origin dorsally, crosses and comes forward finally ventrally. That's your trochlear nerve. Here you're seeing the trochlear nerve crossing dorsally, winding around midbrain, coming forward, passing between 2 blood vessels, superior cerebellar and posterior cerebral, passing forward in the lateral wall of cavernous sinus, passing through the superior oblique fissure, lateral to the ring of Zinn, to go and supply the superior oblique muscle. That's your trochlear nerve in one image. Okay, use the image well. It's a beautiful image. It gives you the entire trochlear nerve in just one image. Okay, that's your trochlear nerve. Only cranial nerve that emerges dorsally. Let's revise quickly. Only a cranial nerve undergoing complete decussation. So what have we learned? We've learned the lemniscal band. We've learned the trochlear nerve nucleus. What more shall we add to our diagram? Let's add the RTM. Now, how many of you remember what is RTM? Rubrospinal tract, tectospinal tract, medial longitudinal fasciculus. Let's add it now. These are the RTM. Rubrospinal tract, tectospinal tract, medial longitudinal fasciculus, also called medial longitudinal bundle. Okay, they are three bands which are present just on either side of midline in the brainstem. So you should always remember to add the RTM, never forget, because they are there in almost every section. Okay, so you've added the RTM. So what are these? What are these? What is rubrospinal tract? It's a motor pathway which is descending down. It's a part of extrapyramidal system, facilitatory to flexors, inhibitory to extensors, brings about motor activity. We've done this earlier. Okay, what is tectospinal tract? Comes descending downwards. It's a facilitates reflex movements of the head and body in response to visual stimuli. We're going to do this in detail, don't worry. What is medial longitudinal fasciculus? If you recall, this is a part of our vestibular system, vestibular nuclei, axons emerging from vestibular nuclei, connecting a lot of cranial nerves to each other. Okay, go back and revise. Okay, it coordinates conjugate eye movements, integrating eye and head movements. Okay, so we will be studying the rubrospinal and tectospinal tracts further in detail today. So don't worry, or maybe in the next lecture. But this will be covered in detail. So we've got our RTM in place, we've got our lemniscal band, we've got our trochlear nerve nucleus. What shall we add now? Let's add the mesencephalic nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Please add it to your diagram. Just in the periaqueductal gray, somewhat laterally situated, mesencephalic nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Have you added it? So we again revise the trigeminal nerve a little bit. That's the nucleus, label it. Right. So here is the person's face. Here is the trigeminal ganglion. Here is the brainstem. And these are the three sensory nuclei of trigeminal nerve. What are these nuclei? Spinal nucleus, principal sensory nucleus, and the mesencephalic nucleus, which is what we are discussing now. So what happens is that pain temperature is picked up from the face, and the first order neuron carries it into the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Second order neuron crosses midline, ascending upwards as the trigeminal lemniscus. Similarly, touch pressure is carried to the principal sensory nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Second order neurons carry it up to the thalamus through the trigeminal lemniscus. Remember, in both these cases, first order neuron lies in the trigeminal ganglion. Now, when there is conscious or unconscious proprioception, okay, this sensation is carried directly to the mesencephalic nucleus, which is one of the only places in the body where a first order neuron lies inside the central nervous system. Normally, first order neurons are always lying outside the CNS. So here you can see the first order neuron lying in the mesencephalic nucleus. Its central process joins the trigeminal lemniscus and ascends up to the thalamus, from where fibers then go to the cortex. So what is the peculiarity of mesencephalic nucleus? Unipolar first order neuron lies in the nucleus. Fibers pass through trigeminal ganglion without relaying. It's the only incidence where the first order neuron lies within the CNS. So what have we done? We have studied trochlear nerve nucleus, mesencephalic nucleus, the entire lemniscal band, and the RTM. What is left to study now? Let's talk about something called superior cerebellar peduncle decussation. Remember, we spoke about inferior cerebellar peduncle, middle cerebellar peduncle earlier in pons and medulla. Today, we're going to briefly touch upon superior cerebellar peduncle, a peduncle of nerve fibers which connects the midbrain to the cerebellum. Okay, so here you can please draw these two. These are the sections of superior cerebellar peduncle, and you can see them decussating here. This is called a superior cerebellar peduncle decussation. Please draw it. Briefly, let's discuss the superior cerebellar peduncle. So again, our familiar diagram, the beautiful cortex, the midbrain, the thalamus, and the pons. And of course, the cerebellum of the opposite side. Now what happens? Cerebral cortex, this is the spinal cord. The cerebral cortex gives rise to fibers that go to pons. What are they called? Corticopontine. From pons, they go to the opposite side, pontocerebellum. This is the cortico-pontocerebellar pathway, informing the cerebellum about some kind of possible action. How does cerebellum respond? Cerebellum responds through fiber tract, which is called dentatothalamic. Goes from the cerebellum through the midbrain to the thalamus. What is it called? Dentatothalamic. It also responds by giving fibers to the red nucleus. These are called cerebellorubral. Okay, can you see that both these fibers are going to the opposite side thalamus and opposite side red nucleus? Okay, so this point where the two fibers from both sides cerebellum cross is called as the point of superior cerebellar decussation, which is what we have drawn in our diagram. Fibers coming from cerebellum enter into midbrain, cross in the midline, and go to the opposite side red nucleus or the thalamus. Okay, this is called superior cerebellar decussation. You can see how now after decussating, fibers go from red nucleus to the thalamus, and finally the thalamus informs the cerebral cortex through thalamocortical fibers. So this is how the circuit gets completed. Cortex intends an action, it informs cerebellum. Cerebellum thinks about it and gives its feedback to, it has to give the feedback to the opposite side cerebral cortex. Therefore, the decussation at the superior cerebellar level is a must. It has to cross the midline to go back to the cerebral cortex of the opposite side. Correct? Have you got the logic? I hope so. So, superior cerebellar peduncle, let's discuss in brief. This is the chief outflow tract from the cerebellum, consisting of two main bundles. We've done this, we don't need to even read it. Dentatothalamic and cerebellorubral set of fibers. Most of the fibers will decussate and ascend up to the thalamus, from there to the motor cortex. These are mainly the fibers which are decussating in the superior cerebellar peduncle decussation. So here, these are the fibers which are decussating over here. But there are some more fibers here which need a little bit of mention. Because we've been carrying them up, let's see how they ended. So here I'm talking about the ventral spinocerebellar tract. It was carrying sensation from the muscles, tendons and joints, carried it into the dorsal root ganglion at the level of spinal cord. The central process went on to relay in the Clark's column. Second order neuron crossed to the opposite side, ascending upwards as the ventral spinocerebellar tract. You remember we carried this tract through the medulla oblongata and through the pons. But as it reaches the midbrain, it enters into the superior cerebellar peduncle, crossing over to the opposite side and finally reaching the cerebellum of the ipsilateral cerebellum. The sensation was picked up on this side. After this whole story, it goes back to the ipsilateral cerebellum after traveling through the superior cerebellar peduncle decussating fibers. If you can, please ponder upon this. Thus, superior cerebellar peduncle has efferents from cerebellum, dentatothalamic, dentatorubral, and has afferents ventral spinocerebellar tract, which are going towards the cerebellum. There's a lot more we can discuss, but we will leave it at that because otherwise we can never end our lecture. So what is left? Of course, the tectum is left. We've covered up the tegmentum, but we have left the tectum, which consists of the nucleus of inferior colliculus. Please draw it. Please remember to draw it close to the lateral lemniscus. There is a logic to it. Please draw it. Have you drawn it? Okay. So let's label it. nucleus of inferior colliculus, lying right next to the lateral lemniscus. So, now add to it these two structures on both sides. This is the inferior brachium, this is the medial geniculate body. Remember, we've drawn this, we've discussed this earlier. The nucleus of inferior colliculus is connected by inferior brachium to the medial geniculate body, which in turn is connected to the auditory cortex. Remember, we've done this. So this is the same thing at the level of the section. So remember, this is the lateral lemniscus lying right next to the nucleus of inferior colliculus. Note these four structures. Note them. Lateral lemniscus, nucleus of inferior colliculus, inferior brachium, and medial geniculate body. Note these four. Now I'm going to expand this and zoom in. Okay. So this is your lateral lemniscus, nucleus of inferior colliculus, inferior brachium, and medial geniculate body. Why are we doing this? Because I want you to understand how the nucleus of inferior colliculus acts as a seat of auditory, it acts as a lower auditory center. How does it act as a lower auditory center? I want you to understand. So, any hearing that has been picked up by the cochlear nuclei is carried up by lateral lemniscus and relayed into the nucleus of inferior colliculus. You can see that happening here. Nucleus of inferior colliculus now sends that hearing through the inferior brachium to the medial geniculate body, which then carries it up to the temporal lobe and hearing happens. The person hears. Okay, this is how your hearing takes place. Some hearing carried by cochlear nerve to cochlear nuclei to lateral lemniscus to inferior colliculus, through the inferior brachium to the medial geniculate body, and then to the auditory cortex. This is how hearing takes place. Parallelly, the inferior colliculus also informs the superior colliculus. Think about it. You heard some sound. You're in a dark room. You just heard the sound. You can't see anything. Yet, your eyes will turn towards that sound. Why did your eyes turn? Because your superior colliculus was informed that there is some sound. Better look, try to find out what is the sound. Similarly, inferior colliculus also informs the opposite inferior colliculus, because auditory stimuli tend to mix up quite a bit. So, one auditory stimulus in one inferior colliculus gets informed to the opposite inferior colliculus. Okay, so this is how auditory stimuli are spreading. Parallelly, the temporal lobe, the medial geniculate body, influence the inferior colliculus, which in turn influences the lateral lemniscus, carrying some corticofugal fibers down, some fibers which are descending down. Can you imagine why fibers are descending down and back into the cochlear nerve? Why? Why do you think fibers are descending down from the auditory cortex to the cochlear nuclei? So this is called as modulation of sensory input. Suppose you are standing in a very crowded place and you are trying to chat with your friend. Everybody is making noise, yet you can hear what your friend is saying. How can you hear? Because your auditory cortex is suppressing the surrounding sound and is helping to modulate the sound coming only from your friend. That's how you're able to have a communication or actually a conversation with your friend in the middle of a very big crowd. Okay, this is sensory modulation. It happens for your visual stimuli as well, and it happens definitely for your auditory stimuli. Please think about this. I find it beautiful. I hope I'm able to send that feeling across to you. So what does inferior colliculus do? It's a relay nucleus in the auditory pathway, of course. It's important for auditory reflexes, like I explained to you earlier. So what did we learn today? We understood that midbrain has to be sectioned at two levels, inferior colliculus and superior colliculus. We started a diagram at the level of inferior colliculus, comfortably drawing substantia nigra and crus cerebri. Adding to this diagram was the lemniscal band and the trochlear nerve nucleus. Then we added our favorite RTM. Then we added mesencephalic nucleus, trying to understand the peculiarity of mesencephalic nucleus. superior cerebellar decustation, and how cerebellum gives input back to cerebral cortex. Then we discussed inferior colliculus and its connections. We go to the next section in the next lecture, which is a section at the level of superior colliculus. I strongly advise you to go through this lecture again, try and solve the MCQs and some of the questions I have given. Remember, if I have asked you a question, the answer is always present in the notes I have given at the end of each lecture. Sometimes something is important, but I don't feel like teaching it here. I may give a note on it in the notes section. So do please remember to check out the notes section. It will be beneficial for you. So I'll see you in the section at the level of superior colliculus. Bye.